Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Today, we are still playing catch up. Um, yeah, I feel like I'm going to be saying that every video for a while, but yeah, today we're still playing catch up. We are going through the G-BT13 decks, I believe we are on. But today's video is going to be on the brand new Garmore deck. So we're gonna load that up. In G-BT13, our Liberator deck has gotten some support, so we're gonna go over that because they got, in my opinion, enough support to effectively, say that it changes the deck and to go over it. They got a new grade 3. They got a new grade 4 too. That's kind of like a good first stride. If you're not just going into, Garmore himself first stride after G-guarding. So yeah, overall, it's pretty awesome deck. It's like works a little bit like Musketeers, where it's a little bit of a rush version of the deck. But yeah, with that being said, let's get right into the deck. We're gonna flip over all of our cards here as per usual, and then we are gonna start with the main deck. Starting with our grade 3s, we have 7 grade 3s in the deck. We run 4 Shining Fang Liberator Garmore Excel. This is the new Garmore grade 3 that I was just referring to a couple minutes ago, or a couple seconds ago, I should say. It is our new Garmore grade 3 that we run now as our main ride target in the deck. It has 2 very good abilities, in my opinion. The first one, which is funny because I feel like if Rearguard had either one of these abilities, that deck would just be so much better. But they actually gave this to Garmore, which is cool. But the first ability is an auto skill that activates on your Vanguard. When your G unit with Liberator or Garmore in its original card name strides, you can counterblast 1. And then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You call up the 2 cards with Liberator in its name to separate Rearguard circle, and then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So basically, this card allows you to call 2 cards because, like, pretty much all the cards in our deck are Liberator, if not all of them. So it will just allow you to call out 2 cards out of the 3. So no matter what you call out, you don't have to really worry about calling out triggers as well, because there's things that you can call out and it goes back, like Catch Goal Liberator, Barbatruth. You can send these cards back when they're called out, and so you don't have to worry about triggers as well, just because of Garmore Excel's second ability, which is Generation Break 1. At the end of the turn, you can choose 2 of your Rearguards with Liberator in its name, put them on the bottom of your deck, and draw a card. So it literally allows you to clear up a little bit of your board space, put some triggers back if you called some bad things to the field, and allows you to clear some board space so that you're able to call more cards to pump your columns the next turn after that. Because a lot of these cards, like Board Andalusian right here, or Brinius or Bruno, a lot of them are reliant on calling another Liberator to the field and they get effects. So it is important that you're not calling over, just not losing your units to the drop zone by calling over units. You are able to, when you're on Excel, just, free up those spaces so that you can call next turn again. So yeah, that's pretty good. Then as our backup grade 3, there's no really good, I should say, backup grade 3 to run for this Liberator deck. So we ended up going with the other Garmore, not the old Garmore. I guess I should call it old new Garmore. And Garmore Excel is new Garmore, and old Garmore is limit break 4 plus 5k when it attacks in limit break, that Garmore. But we are running this Garmore, which is Wolffang Liberated Garmore. It does have effectiveness against decks that will not ride upwards, like grade 1 7 Seeds Rush, but grade 1 7 Seeds Rush is not really a thing anymore. I haven't really seen a lot of grade 1 7 Seeds decks running around at all anymore, so I think that's kind of like officially died. But let me not curse it, because they will always come back somehow whenever I say that. But yeah, it has a limit break 4 ability. It obviously allows you to fight people who push you to high damage early. It doesn't really, it's not really an offensive limit break 4. so it doesn't really like help you when your opponent's rushing you to death. However, you know, one ability is better than no ability. I always say, but what you can do is you counterblast 3 cards with Liberator's Name when your limit break, and then you look at the top card of your deck. You call Gold Pod into the field. You call it to open Rearguard circle, and then you put the rest on the bottom. And then if you call a card and you have any Rearguard circle open, you can use this effect again without paying the cost. So what that means is that you can just call to board, call to board, call to board until you get a full field, basically. And it is kind of just like top deck luck, what you get, but it does allow you to make a full field for free. And against decks that don't ride up, that's pretty good. That can even end the game depending on what you call and what you check as your dry checks. So the second ability of this card is when this unit attacks the Vanguard, you can choose one of your Rearguards with Liberator's Name, put it on the bottom of your deck. This card will get plus 4,000 power. Not really a huge thing either. It's just kind of like, you know, it's one of those things where it just is what it is. It's not really good. It's not really bad, but it's leaning more towards bad than good because you don't like do anything off of putting the Liberator to the bottom except getting 4K. So you're not drawing a card, you're not equaling out, you're not doing anything of that nature. So, you know, you're not really plussing. So it leans more towards the bad side just because it's that older card that it's in a new format. The third ability, though, is pretty useful. So this is one of the reasons that we put this in here is because Wolfrang Liberator Garmore has Lord. So the reason why this is important if you're playing against Shihai or aka Domination, you can play this card off of Shiranui Rine, and they cannot attack with it because they won't have a gold paladin. Because Lord basically says Vanguard, Rearguard, if you have a unit that doesn't belong to the same clan as this unit on the field, this unit cannot attack. So basically, while it's being dominated, it counts as their unit, and it's a gold paladin, and they have Nubatama on the field, so they can attack with it. So it allows you to get around Rene a little bit, and then as well, at the end of your turn, when it's your turn with Garmore Excel, you'll be able to shove those 2 Garmords back to the bottom and draw a card. Granted, the next turn after that, you won't have them for Rene, but you know, that's like getting around 1 turn of Rene is really powerful in my opinion. Then we have 4 going into our grade 2s. We run 12 grade 2s. We run 4 Liberator of Oath Aglaval. This used to be a really big card in Liberator Rush decks. It still is a card and will always retain a spot in this deck, I think, for as long as this deck is around, because this card is just so free and so good. But the ability of this card is when it's placed on the Rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Liberator's Name, you can counterblast 1. If you do, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you search 1 card with Liberator's Name, call it to an open Rearguard circle, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So it is important to notice that it does say open Rearguard circle, aka you don't want to call this card, and that makes, like, if you call this card and you calling Aglaval makes you have a full board, you don't want to use the ability because you won't be able to get anything, because you have to call to an open Rearguard circle. However, most of the time that you use Aglaval, you are using it in the early game where you don't have a field. So using it in the early game where you don't have a field is just really, really good. Helps you set up for future plays, helps you get some free units on the board for some essentially free counterblasts because of this card that we're going to talk about next. So the next card that we were going to talk about in our grade 2 lineup is 4 Reticent Liberator Brinius. So Brinius says on Rearguard circle, when another one of your units is placed from the deck. Something to notice about Brinius is that he is not Generation Break because this is an old card. Or it's new, like it's in Generation Break era. However, this card is not Generation Break. So that's really, really good. Liberators can, you know, do their thing without being in Generation Break and kind of still get stuff done. But Brinius is a very important card in the deck, in my opinion, because it says when another one of your units is placed on Rearguard from your deck, if you have a Vanguard with Liberator's Name, until the end of the turn, this unit gets 2,000 power and a skill. The skill that it gains is when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, choose 1 card from your damage zone, turn it face up. So something important to notice is this does stack. So if you play 5 units from the deck in 1 turn, and Brinius sees all of them, and what I mean is by sees is if Brinius is on the field, then you will be able to get plus 10,000 to Brinius, because 5 times 2 is 10, so 10,000, and then you will also get 5 of the stacking skills on hit. So if you have 5 counterblast flip face down, then you can just attack into their Vanguard. If they let it hit, then you can unflip 5. So this is like our counter charge engine in the entire deck, and this deck can be counterblast heavy at times, so that is important to keep in mind. Finishing up the last of our grade 2 count, we have 4 Liberator Stiletto Hawk. Stiletto Hawk is a generation break card, unfortunately. However, it's still worth a spot in this deck, in my opinion. Its ability is, when this unit is placed on Rearguard due to the effect of one of your cards, you can have this unit get minus 2,000 power, and if you do, it gains the boost ability. So this effect might seem pretty simple, but with a lot of like top deck random calls or top 3 search for cards, it does make your chances a lot better of like filling the spots in your board that you really need to fill, rather than just saying, oh, like, you know, I got 3 grade 2s off the top of the deck, but I already have a front row. Okay, I'm just going to play these in the back row, and they can't attack, they can't do anything, they can't boost. So this kind of helps you get around that. And yeah, the only cards that you want in the front row anyways are kind of like Brinius and Aglaval, or Board Azalusium or Bruno. So you don't really want Stiletto Hawk in the front row anyways, unless it is one of the only grade 2s that you have, because then it'll be 9k because you don't have to use the skill. But you can choose to make it a 7k and make it a booster, which is really good. Then we run 4 E-School Liberator, kind of like our Stride Fodder in this deck, which is why we don't run Stride Fodder, except for our grade 3s if you consider that Stride Fodder. But it has 2 abilities. The Axe skill activates on the Rearguard circle or in the hand. You can bind this card face up from your hand or Rearguard circle, and then you choose one of your units or locked cards, and you unlock it, and then that unit gets plus 2,000 power. So you can either use this skill to just give 5,000, or sorry, you can either use this skill to just give 2,000 to one of your Rearguards, or you can unlock a card, so it's like a anti-Link Choker support thing. You can unlock a card and give it 2,000, so that's really good. You do want to run cards to be anti-Link Choker, just because Gold's calls a field, like, and they usually keep a field, and so for things like Chaos and Messiah, it is important to be able to unlock those cards so that you can make an assault against them. And because that's one of Link Choker's big weaknesses, they lock out Rearguards because they want you to just attack with just your Vanguard, and they want to lock you out of the game, and then it's easier for them to facilitate their resources until they are able to kill you. So in any deck where you can unlock, you just want to unlock as many times as possible so that you're still pressuring them with your Rearguards like a normal deck, and then eventually the Link Choker deck will fall behind, unless they have just a really good defensive hand, and they'll probably die from it. So the second ability is on the Rearguard circle. At the beginning of your ride phase, if you have a Liberator Vanguard, you can put this unit on the bottom of your deck. So again, it clears up a spot on your board, and then you can counterblast 1 Liberator card and then Stride for free. So that's a pretty good cost in my opinion, because not only does it fill up a space on your board, you just counterblast, which I've already discussed is all counterblast abilities in this deck are pretty much free, because eventually they're going to let you hit with Brinius, in my opinion. I haven't had a game where they just didn't let me hit with Brinius when I needed it. So yeah, E-School lets you stride for free, so you can always make sure to call it E-School. This does suck, however, if you're playing against Control, because they will always get rid of the E-School, because they don't want you to stride for free, but in that case, you can just stride with cards from your hand. It's just an additional thing, and sometimes you can play it there as a bait so that they won't target your Briniuses and stuff like that to kill. Then we have 4 Liberator Improved Falcon as our PG. If you watch my last video on Gurgwit, you already know what this does, but I will go over it. It has 3 abilities. First one is Sentinel. You can't run more than 4 Sentinels in the deck. You guys know that. Second one is the PG skill. You can PG Vanguards or Rearguards by discarding a card when this card is placed on the guard circle. And then the third skill is from the drop zone. If you have 2 of them in your drop zone, you can bind one of them, and then you can choose up to 2 cards in your circles other than Vanguard circle, put them on the bottom, and then if you put back 1 or more cards, then you look at the top 3, you can call a card, and then you put the other 2 on the bottom. So again, this is another anti-Link Choker card. I rarely ever use the actual skill unless I'm against Link Choker, because I'm doing it to unlock cards at that point. But yeah, moving on to board Andalusian. I have talked about Board Andalusian a lot in this, video so far. Its skill is that when it's on the rearguard circle and another unit is placed on rearguard, so keep in mind this doesn't say from deck, so you could literally play something from hand and it still gets its effect, which is really good. But when your other unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Liberator's name, this unit gets plus 7k power. So when you place this card as a booster behind like Gurgwit Helios, like you can play it behind Vanguard circle, have it as a booster behind Gurgwit Helios, and have Gurgwit Helios be swinging like a really good number against your opponent to end the game out if you want to end the game out like that. But it just does have multiple uses. Like it can be a 14k in the front row if you don't have a good grade 2. If you play 4 of these on the rearguard circle and then you play a card behind your Vanguard circle, all of them will be 28k columns. So that'll be pretty insane. And it just overall has like really good uses that allows it to be run at 4 in this deck. In return, we ran 2 Mayrain Liberator Bruno. Bruno kind of does the same thing, except you have to work a lot harder to get him bigger than Board Andalusian. But however, Bruno is not once per turn, so it kind of falls hand in hand. Like how much can you actually call that turn? What can you do with your hand and your resources? And that will determine what's worth going for more Board Andalusian or Bruno. So Bruno says when another one of your gold paladin units is placed on the rearguard circle from your deck. So this is not Board Andalusian. Like Board Andalusian is just a way better version of the card in my opinion. Just because you can play a card from your hand, just normal call, and then Board Andalusian gets 7. However, if you can't call any cards from the deck during the turn with Bruno, Bruno stays at 7k, which can be really bad in some situations. But when another rearguard that's gold paladin is placed on the rearguard circle from your deck, if you have a Vanguard with Liberator's name, this card gets plus 3000. So you literally have to use Bruno's skill 3 times in one turn to overcome Board Andalusian's power, make it more useful than Board Andalusian for that turn. So yeah, like I said, we run 4 of those and 2 Brunos. So for our starter, we run 1 Young Lion Liberator Romanus. I feel like the Young Lion is kind of like a, I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's kind of like a tribute to the fact that Ezel was a thing. And I don't think Ezel ever became a Liberator, but this seems like it would be a tribute to that. But anyways, its skills of Romanus, it has 2 skills. The first one is Forerunner, which means that you can move it back when you ride upon it, like most starters in this game. The second ability is an activation ability during your main phase. You can counterblast 1, retire this unit, and then if you have a Vanguard with Liberator's name, you choose up to 2 cards with Liberator in its card name, and then they get the a Bruno skill, basically. So that can be really good when you stack it on Breenus. That means every time you call a card from the deck and there's a Breenus on the field, like let's say that you have double Breenus in the front row, you can use Romanus as your starter and then use your skill of your Stride or anything else to start calling cards from your deck to the back row. And then if you call 3, then both Breenus will get plus 15k. So with stand triggers, like that can be pretty devastating, and crit triggers as well. Speaking of our triggers, we run 6 crit, 6 stand, and 4 heal. We don't really need draw triggers in my opinion because the point of this deck is not to survive for a long time. It's just to kill your opponent and murk them savagely. Like that's just how the deck is. But as for our actual crits, what we run 4 Barbatruke. This is actually the Bluish Flame crit. So it doesn't actually have an ability that matters, except for the fact that it puts itself back in shuffles when it's called from the deck. So it does search for a Bluish Flame card, but honestly, we don't run any Bluish Flame cards because this is not a Bluish Flame deck, so that doesn't matter. The only part that matters is when you call it off of your deck, you're able to just put it back in shuffle, which is good. Then we run 2 vanilla Liberator crits because Liberator name matters in this deck. Then we run 4 Catch Goal Liberators, starting off our stand triggers. Catch Goal Liberator has always been a good card in most, if not all, Gold Paladin decks. The ability is when this card is placed on Rearguard circle from your deck, you can just immediately put it back to the bottom and look at top 3 and get a card that's not Catch Goal Liberator. So it allows you to kind of get a redo on what you get to call. So like let's say that you look at the top 3 cards, they're all grade 0s. You're like, man, this sucks. But you can play 2 Catch Goal Liberator off of that. Like if there's 2 Catch Goal Liberator in there, you can play 2 Catch Goal Liberator, use the skill, bottom, top 3, call a card, shuffle. Bottom, top 3, call a card, shuffle. It also helps to shuffle your deck because if you put, triggers on the bottom, you're going to want to shuffle your deck instead of putting cards at the bottom like most of the effects say in this deck. So yeah, that's really good. Then we run 2 Flow Goal Liberator, honestly, just the Liberator name, like I said before. And then we run 4 of the new Binding Heal, I will call them, the set of Binding Heals, which is the skill is to, when you G-Guard using this card, then if you have 2 heals in your drop zone, you can bind both of them, and then you can countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. So that's really, really good. Moving on to our strides, we have 4 Golden Knight of Shining Fang Garmore. This is an old card that can actually be used in Royal Paladin or Gold Paladin, because that's one of the abilities. It's a Gold Paladin by nature, and then one of the abilities says that it can also be a Royal Paladin. So you can also run this in the Royal Paladin Garmore deck as well. I kind of wish that they combined the two, the Royal Paladin and Garmore, like decks. Like, it would be cool if the starter just said continuous everywhere. Like, you can combine Gold Paladin and Royal Paladin Garmore cards. That would just be really cool, and then that would be like a really cool like mixed build. But I guess for those of you who will play like, with your friends or whatever, you can actually try to mix that build and see how that goes. But getting into the abilities of the stride, it has a Generation Break 2 activation skill. This says choose a card from your drop zone, put it on the bottom of your deck. So notice that it does say choose any card. So usually most of the time I just choose a trigger. This is how you return triggers from your drop zone to your deck. This card right here, I usually return a heal, but you can return a crit, a draw, etc. And then you want to reveal 6 cards from the top of your deck. You choose the same number of your units as the number of high beast cards revealed. They get plus 4,000 power, and then if you chose 4 more units, this unit gets plus 1 critical, and you shuffle your deck. So it is important to note that most of the cards in this deck do reach the high beast condition for that card. So our grade 3s are human, Brennius human, Aglavol human, Stiletto Hawk high beast, Easgol high beast, Improved Falcon high beast, Born Andalusium high beast, and then your triggers, the Vanilla Crit trigger, Catch Goal, Flow Goal, and Shaggy Rabbit are all high beast. So you do have a pretty good chance of checking high beast cards off of this card's ability and getting a crit. Sometimes if your opponent can't guard the numbers that you're setting up, they just lose because this unit will get a crit. And then it does have an activation skill as well that you can use as many times as you want during the main phase, as long as you can pay the cost. You can counterboss 1 and soul boss 1. If you have a heart card with Garmore in its name, you look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and call 1 to the Rearguard circle, shuffle your deck. So you can just have Brennius on the field and just be calling massively with this card, and then after that they let Brennius hit, and then Brennius just unflips it all, and then you do it again the next turn. So it's just really good. Moving on to our next stride, we have 4 Master Swordsmen of First Light, Gargouet Helios. I feel like this is just a generic card that every Gold Paladin player in every deck should just be running, just because this card is like that good. It has an activation skill that's Unite triggered. For those of you who don't know what Unite is the keyword for Gold Paladins. That is when you play 2 units to the board or to the Guardian Circle during the turn, you are in the Unite state for the rest of that turn. So basically, if you have played 2 or more units to the board that turn, you can activate this skill to flip Gargouet Helios face up, and then this unit gets +1 drive check. So turn this off from triple drive into quadruple drive. So pretty good. Then it's Generation Break 3 ability, which is what really makes this card really good. Is this unit gets plus 5,000 power for each of your rear guards, and usually you have 5 rear guards because it's Gold Paladin, so you'll usually be getting plus 25k. And then for the battle that this unit attacks, your opponent cannot guard with grade 1 or higher cards. So this leaves your opponent with only a few options to actually guard this card, and it's huge. So the most efficient way to guard this card would be to perfect guard normally, but it doesn't allow perfect guards by the skill. So if your opponent's attacking you for some big number like 50 to 60 or 60, 70, etc., it is very important that you have this card, just because you can kill your opponent when they're at 5 damage. You also get 4 drive checks, so it's just like none of your other strides give you 4 drive checks literally for free. The only downside to this in this deck is that it's not a Liberator stride, so you won't be able to use the effect of Garmore Excel, and then some of the effects of Some of the effects of the Rearguards you won't be able to use, but the ones that just say if you have a Liberated Vanguard, you will be able to use, because you will still have a heart card that will be giving its name to Gargoyle Helios. Moving on, we have 2 Shining True Liberators to Ramgritter. This is one of the newer strides that they got in this set. It is a pretty good first stride if you can manage to go into it, or if you choose to go into it over Gargoyle Helios for first stride. Some people just opt to Gargoyle Helios because they want that quad drive. I completely understand, etc. But I like going to Ramgritter for first stride. Its ability is if you have a heart card with Liberator's name, you counterboss 1 once per turn, and then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, call up to 2, and then put the rest on the bottom. So it has the same effect literally as Garmore Excel's on stride skill. So that paired with Garmore Excel lets you make a board pretty easily and pretty quickly. Moving on, we have 1 Celtis winner, which is our GB8. It has the Generation Break 8 Unite ability. When this unit attacks, you choose up to 4 of your Rearguards until the end of the turn. They get a skill. And then the skill is that at the end of the battle, this unit attacked or boosted. Look at 2 cards from the top of your deck. Call 1 card to Rearguard circle among them, and it gets plus 5,000 till the end of the turn. And then you put 1 card on the bottom of your deck. So what you will do when you go into this card, if you even make it to Generation Break 8, kind of hard in this deck, but if you happen to make it to Generation Break 8, this is how it works. You will usually attack with Vanguard. You will give the skill to 4 of your Rearguards. Then you will attack with your left side Rearguard unboosted. Then you will replace it with a card from your deck. It will gain 5,000. You attack, you boost this time. You replace the front card. You attack, and then you attack with the other side unboosted. Then attack boosted. Then attack. So altogether, that's 7 attacks. And if your opponent's at 5 damage, like that's gonna hurt them really bad. Then we have 1 Air Elemental Breeze. Obviously, when our opponent's trying to grade stuck us, you guys know, grade lock themselves. But then we have 1 Healing True Liberator Elise, or Elise. This is our G Flip Guardian from the Fighters Collection. You counterboss 1, choose a G Guardian from your G zone, and turn it face up. And then when you can activate that when you place this unit on the guard circle. If you do, you look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, call a card to the Guardian circle. Until the end of the battle, it gets a skill, and then you put the other card on the bottom of the deck. The skill that the other card gets is when the attack did not hit, you can move this card to Rearguard circle. So you can actually guard with a card from the top of your deck, and then actually just put on the field after that, which can really help you with if you have a key Rearguard that you check off the top that you really don't want to get rid of because you don't want it to go to your drop zone. You can just play it to the field after. So something that people get really confused with this card that I felt like I should mention is that a lot of people think that you call the top 2 cards to your guard circle, and then one of them goes to the field at the end of the battle, and then one of them goes to the bottom. But this card actually just chooses one of the 2 cards that you look at, puts it on the Guardian circle, and then puts the other one back to the bottom immediately. So you are losing shield value for that. Then we have 2 Golden Beast Slamy Flare. We obviously run more Slamy Flare in this deck than the Gargoyle deck because it is more important to put back cards and have a clear board to call out all of our combos. So the ability of this unit is when this unit is placed on the guard circle, you can choose a Rearguard and put it on the bottom of your deck. If you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, you search up to 2 cards with different grades, call them to guard circle, and shuffle. Usually what ends up happening is you call a grade 0 and a grade 2 or a grade 1. So this card will usually be guarding for 41k. So that's a pretty good guard. Then we just have 1 generic Rhea G Guardian. Obviously, if we have 2 or more Rearguards, it gets plus 5,000, can guard us for 31k. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then we are going to get right up into our games here. Just gotta open Cardfight area. Hopefully with Vanguard 0, I think it's called, the new app game coming out, hopefully they will make it able to be like an actual full Vanguard game played on there, and make it able to play with your friends or whatever, because then that will overtake Cardfight area completely, and it'll be better graphics, everything, and then I'll just be able to record on mobile, like screen share, basically record my future fights by doing that. But we're gonna load up our game 1 here. So we were playing against a weird Magatsu Legion type Shadow Stitch deck. So we attack, he takes it, he rides and attacks us, we get crit, and then we guard his rearguard circle. We play an ease goal. So it's important to realize that I played the ease goal there because I did not have a stride fighter in my hand, but I did have grade 3. So I wanted to be able to stride next turn. He ended up not riding, which is cool. But if he had rode, then we would have had to use the ease goal skill because we do not want to not stride. So we take 2. We use the breeze. We just attack, and then we attack with Vanguard. He no guards, and we don't crit him. We don't check anything, actually. And then we just use the GB1 to send 2 cards to the bottom and draw a card. He does G-assist, and then he removes 2 cards. He did G-assist the previous turn, too, but he just didn't get it, I guess. So he used the Magatsu skill to call a card out, and then he's Legioning, giving 5k to all Magatsu units and boost, which is pretty solid. He uses the Limit Break to call out a Magatsu. I PG his Vanguard. He checks nothing, and then he attacks me for 19, and then attacks me for 26. So I use Slay Me Flare to get the job done. I draw in Stride into my GB2 Garmore. I use Garmore Excel to call 2 cards off the top. Brinius gets 2k. Then I use Aglavol, call a card, put the other 2 on the bottom. Brinius gets skill again, and then I just call. And then I use the GB2 ability to look at the top 6. And then all of my units get power pretty much. And then I use Garmore skill to counterblast Soul Blast. Look at top 3, call a Bruno. And then I attack him for 26. Keep in mind that if this attack hits, I would be unflipping like 3 or 4 or something like that, so it does force him to card it. Again, he's also at 5 damage, so that is what it is. But we check a heal, and then we attack with Vanguard, and that ends up being game 1. So like I said, it's just a very fast deck. Like, you want to get the game over by 1st or 2nd stride, and if you don't do that, you aren't doing it right, in my opinion. Or your opponent's just way too grindy, and you're probably just going to lose. But loading up game 2, we're playing against the same deck again. This time I don't have Garmore Excel, which kind of sucks, but we attack, and he's also getting the ride chain off this time, so it's a lot more pressure on us. He does check a critical when I guard his Vanguard, so we do take 2 damage. Then we just ride and attack, and then he rides, same ride chain stuff. Gets early rush, and he's running like 12 crit, I believe. So thank goodness he didn't check crit there. We did heal, which relieved 1 attack off of us, which is cool. We do top deck into Garmore Excel as well, so I guess we're just lucky. But we go into Ceram Glitter. We use Ceram Glitter skill to call 2. Board and Illusium gets 7k, and then Brinius gets, a bunch. So when we hit with Brinius, we unflip all of our counterblasts. We attack with Vanguard, we check a stand trigger, stand Brinius, and then we check the crit. Crit power to Vanguard. Then we attack with 17, and then we attack with the other side, put 2 back with Garmore, draw a card. And he's playing a bunch of Magatsu cards. I guess he can't really do anything because he's on the non-Legion. So his deck kind of revolves around being on the Legion. So we do go into Garmore, Stride again. We call just 1. We use Aglavol skill to call a Stiletto Hawk off the top. We choose to make it a 7k so that we can play a Brinius to the field. And then we use Garmore, GB2, reveal top. We have 2, I believe, that were actually, high beasts. So he guards with 3 cards. We attack for 31. He PGs. And then we check a crit, giving it all to our Rearguard. And then we just attack him with a crit, really big. And yeah, that just ends up being game 2. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. And then our game 3 is loading up. Alright, so our Garmore game 3. We're playing against the same deck again, so it's pretty much best 2 out of 3. But he rides the ride chain, doesn't get it this time. We have to G-assist to get into R1, which kind of sucks, but at least we have Garmore Cell, and we have 2 cards to get rid of, and then we just get rid of 2 Garmore strides, because we're not going to go into 4 like you guys saw the last 2 games, so not a big deal. We do end up taking a bunch of damage from him because I was expecting to check a damage trigger, but we didn't. However, I do have Aglaval to play on Rearguard Circle, so I do call some extra cards and then check the stand trigger to put some more pressure on. So he's at 2 damage with 3 cards in his hand. I no guard Vanguard, and he unfortunately checks double crit. So I checked 3 cards, and yeah, that ends up being game on me that time, just because I couldn't guard early and then I had the G-assist. So both decks are kind of like a rush, get you out of my face type deck, kill you early or don't kill you at all. So yeah, but that being said, that has been the Gurgwit FutureFight. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like on the video to let me know that you liked it. It definitely helps out a lot more than you guys think. Also, check out the description down below because it has everything from our Patreon and the merch store to our social medias, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.